About 3 years ago, I set on a journey to hand my farm over to my son, Kenneth. It was a big operation for two reasons. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining me. Eamon here, going to talk about succession planning. What is succession planning? Let's delve into it, and I'll explain it further through the video. About 3 years ago, I set on a journey to hand my farm over to my son, Kenneth, who's farming alongside me for the last 12 or 14 years. It was a big operation. I gained a lot of experience from that. I also didn't come to it I came to it with a good bit of knowledge for two reasons. Firstly, I inherited the farm from my father, or my father signed the farm over to me, about 40 odd years ago. I had to do all the work, as my father did not particularly like dealing with solicitors. The only time he went in is when he was absolutely necessary. But I did all the preliminary work on his side, and when he had to make a decision or sign something, he went in. I also was very active involved in farming politics in IFA, Irish Farmers Association, and through my 35, 40 years involvement in that, and particularly for the 20 years I was involved at national level, I would have been very much involved with that whole area of successions and farms being handed over to the next generation. When you go to do that, there's probably two ways of doing it if you're handing it on. The first one is you can sign it over in your lifetime to your son, your daughter, your niece, your nephew, or a good friend. The second one is you can make a will and will it after your death. And when you die, then whoever you would will to, let it be your son or daughter or niece or nephew or whoever it is, inherits that farm. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to speak about signing it over in your lifetime and how you go about it. And probably the same thing applies. A lot of what I'm going to say will apply to if you're going to make a will. The first thing you do is you need to sit down with your wife or your husband or your partner in life, whoever your significant other is, and discuss it with them. And discuss what you want for the next 10 or 15 or 20 years in your retirement. What part of the farm do you want? Do you want an income coming from the farm? Do you want to hold on to a piece of land because you could have other family members that wants maybe a site or something off it, or you have a daughter or another son that you want to give them a field or whatever? You need to sit down with your partner or spouse or whoever it is and discuss all that details. When you're happy with that, then you discuss it with the person that's going to inherit your farm. Who is going to your successor? Who's going to inherit the farm from you? This is what I'm saying, that you need succession planning. You need to think about and plan it out. You just can't do it with a spur of the moment. Similar things are the same, whether it's a farm or whether it's a business. Thing you want to do, as I say, you sit down with your spouse, you sit down with the person, and then you decide, what way does it look like? What is it going to look like? The first thing you need to do is make sure that you yourself is protected. That you have your house, and the house is still in your name, and you have an income, whatever that income may be. Yeah, I know you'll get the old age pension. You also might have some savings, or you might have some private pension as well. Are you going to stay doing a bit of part-time work on the farm? Are you going to be remunerated for that? Is there other family members that need to get a piece of this land? How big is your estate? Farms today can vary from 1 million up to maybe 10 million. maybe even some of them bigger. But there's a lot of farms worth 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 million euros because land is very expensive. So, is one son or one daughter going to inherit it all, or have you other members that you'd like to give some money to, or some piece of land? But remember, where the farm is worth maybe 5 or 6 or 7 million, remember that it's worth a lot of money. But it's farming, as you know, it's very asset rich but cash poor. Unless you're in a very, very good, well-run dairy operation, generating a lot of cash. Beef and maybe cereals as well, or sheep, does not generate the same amount of cash. So where you're maybe handing over an asset of 5 or 6 million, but there might be just about a living in it for one person. So you want to be careful that you don't bleed it, that you're not handing something over to a son or a daughter or a niece or nephew, and that they are not going to be able to run it as a going concern, as a farm, because it's too heavily borrowed or you have taken too much out of it for yourself. So they are the considerations. That if you are passionate about your farm, and we all know how passionate we are all about our land and our farms. A lot of us have seen the film The Field with the bull McCabe fighting over a rocky field. You've seen the emotions and the passion that he had to the extent that they murdered a man that was going to buy this field because they felt it was their field. The same emotions is in Ireland today. Maybe to not the same extent we're going to murder people over it, but there's a lot of emotions because you have spent your life building this farm up. You have put blood, sweat and tears into this farm. You probably inherited from your father or your mother and gone back several generations. This is an intergenerational farm. So it's not something that, that was sprung up and generated maybe one person. That might be on some occasions, but the vast majority of farms has been handed down from one generation to another. And you want to make sure that you hand it on to the next generation in good state and good financial position that they're able to make a living out of it. The first thing you need to do, you need to sit down and employ a very good solicitor. Then you need to employ a very good accountant because there's tax implications. The person that's inheriting the farm needs to be a qualified farmer. That means he has to have a green, or he or she has to have a green cert, or they're not entitled to the tax relief that there is got to do with transferring agricultural land. It's called agricultural relief. I won't get too technical on all that now. And along with that I think it's well worth your while, if you're considering retiring or considering handing it over to the next generation, go and seek advice. Maybe go to talk to fellow farmers. Talk to me. Talk to other people that has been down this road and has pitfalls and can avoid the pitfalls for you. I'll tell you a quick story. A good friend of mine was retiring a few years ago, and I was speaking with him on retirement. He was a man that generated a lot of land and accumulated a lot of land over his lifetime. A very successful farmer. Made a lot of money, loved farming, loved making money, and ended up with a substantial farm of land. And he had 2 sons at home farming it. But he told me that it was harder for him to give it away to his 2 sons and his other family members that he wanted to fix up than it was for him to accumulate it. It was easier for him to go into the bank and borrow the money and go to the auction and buy the land and go through the legal aspect and get into his name than it was to give it away. And that is, and I would verify that from my experience. And it'll take up to about 2 years for you to do the whole transition. But having said that, it is well worth doing it. And the next video I'm going to speak to you on what's the advantages of handing it over in your lifetime rather than after your lifetime, and what's the pitfalls. So next video, I will cover those two topics. Thank you again for listening, and thank you for supporting my videos. Eamon here, signing off.